Okay, good evening and welcome to this evening's panel discussion, which is an RC Expert update on the implications of COVID to date on both construction and insurance. And we are also joined by Darren Hahn from Nordens, who's going to be talking to us about financial aspects of it in terms of furloughing and the loans and everything else, and what the current status is with all of those. So the format for today is that each of our panelists will be giving an update from their sector, and then we will open the floor for your questions. If you could actually put your questions to the guys via the Q&A tool in the bottom toolbar panel, second tool along, and then they will endeavour to answer as many of those as they can. So we will be starting with Richard on construction, followed by John on insurance, and then Darren will be bringing up the rear with finance for us. So, Richard, we will hand the ball to you and ask you to start us off, please.
Thank you, Julie. Good afternoon, all. As Julie said, my name is Richard Silver. I am the Senior Partner of Silver Shemmings Ash Solicitors. I only deal with construction. And those of you who will know me, I only deal with disputes because there's nothing more that I like than a good argument. I am both a panel adjudicator on panels including the RICS and the CIRB, and I also act as representative for parties within adjudication. Over the last few months, unsurprisingly, I've had many calls on and emails concerning the coronavirus, whether it is or is not an extension of time, under what circumstances, if any, can you recover loss and expense. But despite having a number of calls and emails, I have not seen one dispute on coronavirus. I haven't received any adjudications where I'm the adjudicator and to decide whether a party is entitled to extensions of time, nor have I run any adjudications seeking extensions of time or acting for, say, an employer saying that the contractor has no entitlement. Now, it may be the case because of the ongoing issues associated with the coronavirus that people haven't yet chosen to refer such disputes. But I am aware from speaking to many of my clients that a fairly reasonable approach has been adopted and employers have awarded extensions of time to contractor. But only time will tell if there are disputes on coronavirus. What I have, however, found is that there is an increase in disputes. I have, in the last few months, received more nominations to act as an adjudicator, and I've also commenced more adjudications acting for clients than probably a good few years. And it will come as no surprise that most of the disputes concern money. There are a number of disputes concerning simple non-payment where the amounts are in dispute. And I've even had some to do with old final accounts. Seems to me that obviously money is very important, as it always is, and therefore parties are referring to disputes on money. As has been the case for now a number of years, I have also seen a number of adjudications concerning smash and grabs. For those of you who aren't aware, a smash and grab is where a contractor argues that an application for payment has been submitted, and in that the employer has not issued either a payment notice or a payment-less notice, the contractor is entitled to the amount that has been applied for, whether the sum applied for was right or wrong. So I'm still seeing a number of those running. The other thing I am seeing is a number of disputes concerning termination. It seems to me that on projects, be it the employing party or the contracting party, are looking on the current project, seeing how those projects are going on, whether they're going to get final payment, whether the contractor is performing, etc. And parties are looking to terminate contracts. Mindful of the issue concerning payment, you may be aware that the CIC have introduced an adjudication procedure for low value disputes. This is now also in tandem with other nominating bodies, including the RICS. When you apply for it, depending upon the value in dispute, there is a set sum which the adjudicator will charge in deciding the dispute. The first band is 0 to £10,000 in dispute, and for which the fixed fee of the adjudicator is £2,000. It then goes to £10,000 to £25,000, and the adjudicator's fee is £3,500. And then finally, £25,000 to £50,000, where the adjudicator's fee will be £6,000. I believe there has been quite a few adjudications in that regard. Clearly, people seeking to recover monies owed. Seems to me to be a very sensible approach for these lower value amounts. Apart from that, things continue as ever. John.
Thank you, Richard. The big news from my area, of course, is the outcome of the FCA case that was brought against some 7 insurers concerning some 79 policies, all to do with business interruption and whether insurers should be paying business interruption losses as a result of 2 things. 1, not excluding pandemics from their policy wordings. Secondly, whether the acts of the government over time, where people had to leave their offices, stop work, etc., whether the policy should respond to that. There are some, it's estimated, some 390,000 policies that are affected. And the potential payment that insurers might have to make runs into billions of pounds. Not surprisingly then, Lord Justice Flo, who came down from the Court of Appeal to sit in the Commercial Court, along with Lord Justice Butcher, faced with some 20 barristers, has come to the very sensible decision, in my view, that he's going to take his time and think about this one and not rush into any decision. He realizes its importance, and he said so in his summing up. So we're not expecting to hear much from the court until the 30th of September. I've done a full series of 10-minute vlogs and full seminar on exactly how these issues have developed and exactly what the court is deciding. But there is no doubt that this is going to be one of the biggest cases in English history. Billions of pounds are involved, and therefore I think Mr. Justice Flo has taken the right decision to take his time over it. Even when he does decide, and he said we'll have his judgment at least by the 30th of September, there is an automatic process within the agreed framework between the FCA and insurers that the matter will be, if you like, rushed through to the Supreme Court, so there will be some definitive answer. I'm not expecting that definitive answer much before the end of October. There will also be some guidance as well on quantum, so what you can claim for, etc. I should just stress, and I think it's been alluded to in the press, that this is all a bit of a cosy arrangement between the FCA and insurers, and they're trying to cover things up, etc. In fact, that is not the case at all. The FCA have been extremely transparent and open. All of the pleadings in this case are available on their website. They have taken and indeed allowed to be represented a sample of policyholders who informed the court the effect that the non-payment of business interruption claims had on their business. So there is no doubt that this is not a cosy cover-up. The FCA have been vociferous in their insistence that insurers really should pay. I'm afraid to say I'm not going to guess on what the outcome will be. My own view always has been that viruses do not operate in watertight compartments. It is just false to say that it's over in that corner over there, but it's not here. Viruses are everywhere. And therefore, trying to limit it to buildings or to radiuses is frankly not the point. It's there, And I'm afraid business interruption, well, a good many business interruption policies covered notifiable diseases, and therefore they should be responding. But we will have to wait and see. As I said, I'm not expecting anything final until probably towards the end of October, by the time we hear from the Supreme Court. That is the big issue at the moment for insurers. And will it end some insurers? It may well do. Some of them have written very wide coverage. I think they will be hit, and you may see some household names, frankly, going into, well, they don't go into liquidation, they go into runoff, and that will be the end of them. So there we go. That's all really hard to say, so I'll hand over down to Darren, who's going to brief us all on finance.
Thanks, John. Afternoon, everyone. So the update from me is that in terms of HMRC and their leniency and the way they're collecting tax right now, other than the VAT deferral and the personal tax deferral to January, taxes are still very much liable. With that being said, they're being very, very lenient on time to pay arrangements and also stretching payments with them. So at present, you know, cash is king, and the preservation of it and looking after that as much as possible is imperative right now. So my advice on that would be take advantage of HMRC's leniency, because we're not really going to see them be as lenient as this in the future. And when things do pick up, if they pick up eventually, we're going to see them cracking down on the demand of and the collection of tax. Other than that, there's no real update with HMRC. The government initiatives in the form of bounce back loans and interruption loans, or the CBILS. Now, if you haven't looked into them already, you haven't made an application already, I strongly suggest that you do. They are coming to an end. The bounce back loan, the deadline is the 4th of November, and the CBILS deadline to make an application is the 30th of September, so the end of this month. Now, they have extended the approval period, so the lenders have until the end of November to approve the finance, but you still have to make that application before the end of this month. So if you haven't, I would strongly suggest that you do. If you actually already, if you've made the application already and been rejected, I actually suggest that you look at reapplying with another lender. Where the CBILS and these interruption loans were initially aimed at businesses that were suffering, or that it was aimed at a certain type of business during that time, the underwriting has unofficially changed, and now they're lending a lot more. Their risk appetite's changed, and now they're lending a lot more to businesses, even if you have been rejected before. So I would definitely look into that. Now, even if the money's not necessarily needed, but you know, you were looking to grow your business or enhance your business, but you didn't have that capital to do so, like I said, the underwriting rules have changed, so you can actually use the money now to grow your business and use it to make those investments. And what we're actually seeing is a lot more businesses taking the opportunity to go into mergers, acquisitions, and management buyouts in this time. They're seeing it as a really good opportunity to take that money and invest it into acquiring other businesses, which is quite interesting. But other than that, there's not a real update. What I would suggest though as well is that don't necessarily look at just the loan elements of these CBIL arrangements. They do have other forms of finance, such as asset finance and invoice finance, which people often forget about. And whilst the loan is aimed at more short-term cash flow, the invoice finance is a lot more forward-thinking and longer-lasting. So I would definitely be looking at that as well. Now, those are really, really competitive rates, even after the CBILS has ended. So definitely look into that if you haven't. In terms of the self-employed grants, as of the 17th of August, people can now apply for the second grant, as long as they can demonstrate an adverse impact on business. And they have confirmed that this is going to be the last grant in this nature for taxpayers. So if you haven't made if you are self-employed and you haven't made that grant claim, make sure you do that as well. And the last thing that I would say is to, you know, like I said earlier, cash is king right now. It's everything. So, you know, revisit your working capital cycle. Check your credit control function and how quickly you can collect money and how quickly you're paying out money, and have a look at that and see if you can make those small marginal tweaks to improve your cash flow. Because once that money's gone, it's gone. We don't know how long this is going to last. And the other thing would be to forecast. I mentioned it on the last webinar I was on. Forecast. It's everything. It should be your Bible right now. Your cash flow forecast. It's going to help you spot those pinch points when you're going to need money. It's going to spot whether you're applying for money and you don't even need it. So you could be taking on finance when you don't actually need it. So definitely get one of those prepared if you haven't already, and regularly visit it, replacing the forecast with the actuals as they go along, to make sure you're on top of it. But like I said, it should essentially be your Bible. Other than that, there's no real finance update. So unless anyone's got any questions, yeah, that's it from me.
Okay, thanks to the three of you for the update there. John, I would just say to you, I know Darren's just mentioned about applications for the loans and everything else, and get in now whilst they're still available. We've had questions for you before on business interruption claims for insurance. Is it too late to put a claim in? We've been asked before, and I know we are coming up to the absolute last knockings, aren't we?
We really are. I've stressed from the very first talk I gave on this, Julie, to everyone to make a claim. You may not be able to quantify what your claim is, and ultimately you may not have a claim, but make one, because all insurance policies are subject to a late notification. Most of them say 30 days. If you've not told us within 30 days of an incident, not necessarily business interruption, a car accident, anything, then we will not indemnify you. And nothing in the new Marine Insurance Act has changed that.
Right.
So I'm afraid to say, if you haven't made a business interruption claim by now, I think you are going to struggle. Because insurers will say, you knew about this 4, 5, 6 months ago, it really all started now, and you haven't got round to making a claim yet? No. So I think you will run into late notification difficulties there. But if you have made one, again, the key to this is not to be put off. I've seen all sorts of things happen. Brokers, very wrongly, because they're the agent for the insured. So for you, if you're the insured, turning around to their clients and saying, oh, well, don't bother making a claim, it won't get paid, and we have to pay you, we pay everyone. That's not the right approach. The correct approach is from what professional brokers have done, which is to say, look, they're going to make a claim, make the claim, insurers will reject it, that's fine, you just simply write back, say we don't accept your views correct, we're waiting for the outcome of the FCA test case, and they will then probably come back and say, well, look, it's our final decision, you can go to the legal ombudsman. Don't panic about that either, you've got 6 months from the date of that letter to go to the legal ombudsman. So, but I think if you haven't made a claim by now, you will run into some difficulties. It's not as if everyone doesn't know about this. They do.
Just in case you hadn't noticed.
Just in case you hadn't noticed, people are wandering around with masks and all the rest of it, you know.
Okay. The other thing was, someone had asked earlier, a pre-submitted question about insurance renewals currently. I understand there's quite a few difficulties with some people renewing their insurance policies.
Yes. It is not going to be pleasant. Our own, the broker that we use, who's one of the best that I've known, he's never known a market like this in 20, well, I've known him 30 years, so in 30 years. Premium rates are going to go up significantly, especially for professional indemnity insurance. In all businesses, it is going to go up. Anything from, I heard of one last week, was 130%. So it is going to be increasingly difficult to get cover at a sensible rate, and it's going to be increasingly difficult to get cover that actually gives you proper coverage, especially in construction. Anything, if you mention the word cladding, yes, there are a couple of specialist cladding insurers now, but for the most part, if you do any form of cladding, the premium is going to go up. And there, of course, Grenfell doesn't help this. We're still waiting the outcome of the judgment on the inquiry on that. And again, there will be a lot of professional indemnity claims on that. So it is not going to be much fun. I would say to everyone, I don't know whether Darren would agree generally, that you should be adding in an additional reserve this year for your insurance cost, because it will be going up. There's no two ways about it.
Okay. Are there any other?
Sorry
elements,
about that.
Darren?
I will have some good news one day, Julie.
Are there any other elements that people should be aware of, Darren? They should be adding in, aside from insurance, obviously, which is going to rocket through the roof.
Insurance is the big one. Off the top of my head, not really. I mean, for me, it's just to try and shave or become. We use the term become a lot leaner. You know, try and shave those overheads. Take an inside view and try and shave those overheads as much as possible. Try and improve your margins as much as possible to allow yourself to be more profitable. But with that surplus that you're going to be making, is not to spend. It's to keep there as like a reserve, a cash reserve. That's why I would suggest. And going back to what I mentioned about the finance, you know, like I said, even if it's not needed right now, with the terms of the finance, even if you just sit on it and do nothing with it for 12 months, and after 12 months you realise, great, we haven't needed to spend it, you just pay it back and you haven't paid a penny. Yeah. You know, it's like we're never ever going to see finance as obtainable as it is right now, and take advantage of it.
Okay. So that's good advice. Top tips, John, on if anyone's approaching renewal period, anything they should be doing in particular?
Get in early. Don't leave it to the last minute. It will not do you any good at all. I spent the last week in August preparing ours. We don't renew for another 6 weeks, but it's to give the brokers the maximum time in the market to basically find the best possible deal they can for you. If you're giving it to them 2 days before, they're not going to have any opportunity to do anything.
Yeah.
So get your proposal form together, fill it out properly, and completely remembering that the duty is to make a fair presentation of the risk. But frankly, if you go back to the old rule of utmost good faith, if you're not sure, tell your insurers. You won't go far wrong. And liaise with your broker. If you have a good broker, your broker will have been nagging you. I have been nagged since the 1st of August. So your broker will be nagging you to say, come on, get the stuff in and get it in quickly. Anything else? Any other top tips? I'm still tempted to say probably stay where you are if you can and the price is not too prohibitive, because effectively you build up a reserve with your insurer. You haven't made many claims, you've got a reserve there, and they will look at you more favourably. You're going to say, well, look, we're going to have to put up a bit, but we accept we haven't paid out very much. But as you go to a new entity, you might in the first year get a cheaper price. But if you've then had a big claim, next year your policy is going to go through the roof in terms of cost. But the main thing at the moment is get your insurance proposal ready, fill it out properly, get it to your broker, give them some time. It's going to be a difficult time to do anything at the moment. Give them sufficient time.
Okay. Someone just put up a question here about there is no insurance time mechanism to claim.
That's not right. There is always, depending on the wording of your insurance policy, there is always a time limit in there. There is a 6-year general time limit in most contracts, and of course you have a contract with your insurer, but that is subject to the policy terms and conditions. And most policies will say late notification is normally within 30 days. If you have not notified within 30 days, you run the risk of insurers saying that's late notification, we are not going to pay you. And nothing was changed in the new Marine Insurance Act, so that was designed to make it more difficult for insurers to avoid paying claims. Nothing in that changed that basic position. So, and also the 2 other points to bear in mind, and I'm sure Richard will bear me out on this one. If a construction site is closed for more than about 30 days or so, normally insurance automatically ceases. They say, it's a bit like having your house unoccupied for more than 30 days. You don't tell them, then the insurance will just stop responding. So, well, you didn't tell us. It's shut. 30 days, that's it. And lots of people are not keeping their insurers up to date with what they're doing in relation to their construction projects and indeed in relation to their offices. Most office policies say if you're having your offices unoccupied for more than 30 days, after that time, cover ceases. Unless you've told them, look, like everybody else, we've had to close our office, because they want to know what the security arrangements are. Have you still got a security guard going in? Is there still somebody going to your office at least once a week to make sure there hasn't been a water leakage? That's their concern. But you need to update these things. Insurers do not like complete silence. And then someone makes a claim 6 months after they've heard nothing from them at all. They go, well, hang on a minute. I don't like it. So it's not true to say that there are always time limits in insurance policies, and people need to read their policy wording. As you know, Julie, I bang on about this all the time. Not your 3 bits of paper you get for your broker. It is your 60-page document. That's your contract, not the 3-page summary.
I believe you do have mentioned that once or twice before.
I may have mentioned it once or twice.
Yes. Richard, are there any other top tips you'd like to say for the current situation with disputes and everything else in construction?
I think there's only 2 things to say. First thing is, clearly there is delay caused by the current situation. Many contracts require you to give notice. You need to do that. Keep adequate records so you can substantiate the delay. Labour resources, photographs and everything else will be very useful. So keep good and proper records. The second one is, if you're entering into a new contract, don't enter into it or sign it if it says, or rather if it doesn't say, you can't get an extension of time by reason of the coronavirus. Most standard forms do not give you an extension of time when you should have foreseen the problem. So today we know there is a possibility of a spike in the future. Therefore, you enter into a contract today and a month down the line there's a spike and all the sites are closed, you will not be able to claim. So my advice is that when signing up the contract, put a bespoke amendment in saying that if it arises, you're entitled to an extension of time.
Right. Okay. Well, gentlemen, there are no other questions. So you've obviously given us all a great update. Thank you all for your time. And we look forward to speaking to you again soon. John, I know if there's any news on the FCA test case, you'll be...
I will be, yes.
All over it like a bad rash and talking to us again. Darren, thank you for your time. It's always much appreciated when Nordens help us with the finance side of things. And Richard, thank you as always for your great advice and updates on the construction side of things. So without any further ado, we'll say thank you and good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Thank you very much, Julie. Good night, everyone. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.